This week's episode is brought to you by Wedditor and Wedding Posthouse. Hello and welcome to the How to Film Weddings podcast. My name is John Bunn and I am very excited about this week's episode. I just finished interviewing Drew Coleman of Drew Coleman Films. He's based out of North Carolina and he has gone from just starting his business a few years ago to now averaging over $7,000 per wedding. And we dig into how he used a servant's heart and being somebody that leads with service to get in the room with the right people so that he could book the right weddings, and his career has skyrocketed. He's been added to the LLY List of wedding filmmakers, the top wedding filmmakers to watch, the Knots list, all kinds of different lists, all kinds of different great things, international weddings, celebrity weddings, and his business is just getting going. We walk through his journey. We walk through how he has done, what he is doing, and this episode is going to offer you some very practical tips on how to take your business to the next level. Before we hop into this week's episode, I want to tell you about our friends over at Wedding Posthouse. If you're not sure or haven't heard of Wedding Posthouse, they are a culling service where you upload your footage and then within a few days, you get it back and it's all culled for you. And what does that mean? They've organized it into different timelines, into different sections, and they've shown you only the good and usable footage so you don't have to waste your time cutting through all of the clips. It's all organized. All the things that need to be synced are already synced for you. Honestly, for a few $100, it's a steal. So head over to howtofilmweddings.com/outsourcing and you can check out our friends over at Wedding Posthouse. And with that, we're going to head on over to this week's episode with Drew Coleman Films. All right, well, thanks, Drew Coleman from Drew Coleman Films, for being on the How to Film Weddings podcast. Say hello, introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you based? Just give us a little bit of about Drew and everything that you want to share with the audience.
Yeah, for sure. First off, thank you so much for inviting me on. It was a huge honor as soon as I saw the message come through. But obviously, I'm Drew Coleman from Drew Coleman Films, based in Wilmington, North Carolina. The majority of my weddings are in North Carolina. I would say maybe 20% of them are not a year. But I mean, I started out doing video stuff from just filming basketball on my cell phone of me in the backyard on like a 7-foot goal, acting like I was on a 10-foot goal. Obviously, I was not. But that's where like my love for video started. So that was maybe in middle school, something like that. Time went on, I went to film school, graduated from film school, absolutely despised film school. I was so tired of it. And I think the reason why was something we'll probably get into eventually, so I won't go into that yet. But I graduated from college in December of 2021, and I've been doing this full time ever since.
Okay. And so it's weird because 2021 to me seems like that was last year or something, but we're going, that's a few years back now. So you started your business after COVID, kind of got after the hard part of it. So you're completely post COVID. So, tell me a little bit about just kind of, the business, getting it going in 2021, and then maybe like just a little bit of the snapshot of what it took to get to where we're at today.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I actually started my business in May of 2020. In March of 2020, obviously everybody got sent home from school. So, I had no more classes because I had 2 more classes because 2 classes were only in person that couldn't be switched to like a hybrid or online. So I had 2 classes. So I was in my hometown, had a lot of time on my hands, and somebody from my church actually was telling me over and over again to like start an official business. So I just, I dove into it in 2020. When I started that in 2020, it was just a broad video business that filmed everything all the time. And so let me back up a little bit. I actually did my first wedding in 2018 or 2017, as soon as I graduated high school. So from that point on, I was really just making videos for fun. And then when 2020 came along and I had more time on my hands and I was able to talk to more people about like what I wanted to do with this, is when I was told, hey, start an actual business and see where it can go. So I started a business. It was called 24K Empire at that point because I had no better. I didn't know better for a better business name. But it was called 24K Empire at that point, and I just filmed any and everything. Um, but while going through film school is actually what kind of made me flip the switch mentally that I really wanted to dive into weddings. I really loved focusing on documentary stuff in film school, and the reason why is because I love the idea of like showing up to anything, and my job is to just hit record and let what's in front of my camera just be what's in front of my camera. Let things happen naturally instead of like a film set is everything scripted. You have marks on the floor for where people got to stand, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For me, I love the idea of just showing up and then like I have to document whatever is happening, and it'd be happening the same way whether I'm there or not. I love the idea of that. So I would say the summer of 2021, which is going into my last semester, is when I was like, okay, I'm gonna not get rid of, but clean this business out of just filming everything and just see what I can do with weddings. So I graduated in December of 2021 and I just went right into taking a leap of doing this full time only. And you know how it goes in the first few years of doing weddings, you do like any and every wedding, you do like tons of weddings a year. So in 2022, in 2022, I did 44 weddings, I believe. And then in 2023, I did 39, I believe, which is, that's a lot of weddings for just a solo shooter to do by himself. And obviously I was doing all the editing at that point. I still am, I guess, doing all the editing. So those are just like two really fast, really hard grinding years. But I don't look back at them as like, I would never do that again, or which I won't. I won't take 40 something weddings again. But I also realized like the blessing it was for somebody who just started to take weddings seriously, like one summer of 2021, and then the next year of 2022 to be a calendar full of events. And I don't want to make it seem like it was just, I don't know, like I was just some master filmmaker and all these couples booked me because I was just so good or something. I do realize that I feel like it was kind of like an anomaly to just jump in. Okay, here we go, full time. I've done 16 weddings at this point, and then have a year of 40 plus, and then another year of 30 plus, and then now it's, business is great. We're booking weddings that I've been dreaming of booking. My wife is now full time with me, so she films with me now. Yeah, I guess the speed, I guess you can say, of where I got to where I'm at now is where I am now is what I dreamed of being in like 2030. Not thinking it was possible to get to a certain point so quick in this industry, but again, I will not take all the blame for, me just being a beautiful, great filmmaker with that. I do know that it was a lot of people around me that really helped me get to where I'm at too.
Yeah. I love hearing that. I always love hearing people's stories, and that's a lot of weddings between 2021 and now. And I think that I guess I'd ask this: when you decided, okay, I'm going to do this, a lot of people kind of wait and sit back until they have bookings, or they like, okay, well, I'm in business. Let me just post on Instagram and we'll just see what happens. What did you do? What action did you take at the beginning to get this many weddings booked? Like, how'd you do this? I'm assuming you're an action taker. So like, what was that story kind of like? You graduate. What did you do to fill up the calendar?
I thankfully knew early on that, getting in the same room with people that I want to work with was going to be very, very important. And at that point, the people I want to get into the same room with now obviously is a lot different than when I was first starting out. But there was, wedding planners in my hometown and photographers in my hometown that I knew like the way I could be able to work with them is if they just knew who I was in the first place. Obviously, you can follow somebody on Instagram and send them a DM. Anybody can do that. But I luckily, thankfully understood early on that it was going to take, further steps to be able to get to where it's like this planner is always going to trust me with her couples, or this photographer is always going to trust me with her couples. So very early on, I knew networking was a huge, huge piece of where I can get to, where I can get to where my business is really going to begin to start elevating. So really early on, I was doing open houses. Sometimes I would even just ask like planners or photographers for just like, if they want to go out and have like a coffee or something, just like nothing really like work related stuff sometimes, but I also knew like those small acts of just connection or service would go a long way too. Because, let's just be honest, like if a wedding planner does 15 weddings a year, and they're all like really extravagant luxury weddings, she's probably not going to pay attention to just a DM from somebody all the time. So I was already like knowledgeable of taking further steps towards building a connection than just social media, even though social media is like massive for this industry, as obviously, I think the biggest part was just finding ways to get in the same room with a lot of people. And then also when I'm in that same room with them, obviously, my goal is to connect with them, to do weddings with them. But, this was kind of taught to me from my parents. Like somebody, like if I want to connect with somebody on a level that's higher than me, they don't owe me that at all. So it was, I guess, the challenge of trying to figure out how can their connection with me be beneficial to them too? And that's where the acts of service would come in, where I'll give your couples a discount if they book with me, or if this wedding books with me, I'll give your couples a discount for this. If you want behind the scenes video for anything for a wedding or anything, I'd be happy to give it to you. Reaching out to venues to give them like videos of their property for their website, stuff like that. That is stuff that I think a lot of people, this is not, okay, I'm not a hater. I may sound like it, but I'm not a hater, I promise. It's something that I feel like a lot of people just think that they're above doing really early on in their business. And I think that's just so far from the truth. I don't think I'm above doing any of that now. I think serving is something we should always be doing. Anybody in any industry should be, have a heart of service. So that's what really helped me. I hate to say it like I'm at just some crazy high level, because I'm not, but that's really what helped me jump to different levels at the pace that I did.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. And I love, last week I did an episode just talking about getting in with wedding planners, and one of the things is like get in the room. And I think that a lot of us make it so much more difficult than it has to be. And depending, if you're talking about trying to get like ultra luxe planners, like just asking for coffee is not going to work. You got to like meet them where they're at. That might mean you're going to a conference that they're at or something or whatever, or somehow figuring out a way. But like in your situation in North Carolina, and it's like you had to do the research and know who it was you wanted to connect with, and then you had to figure out a way to connect with them and take those action steps. A lot of people get in their head and, they think, okay, I'll start working out when I'm fit. It doesn't work like that. It's like I can watch Instagram influencers tell me how to do push-ups, but until I do 50 push-ups, I don't know what it feels like to do a push-up. And that's what I've seen with a lot of the people that are finding success and finding it quicker. You're 4 years, 3 years, something like that into going pretty full-time in this now. But that's a pretty quick, progression through your business. And it's the same thing when I talk to different filmmakers. They're the ones that they understand how to serve people and they understand how to take action. And so I was going to ask you, do you remember any instances early on where you did reach out, you were able to do like any connections that started the fire? Did you swing the bat miss a handful of times? Did the first person you ask come to meet with you? Like, what's a little bit of that story that might encourage someone out there that's saying, man, I want to take steps, but what worked? What works?
So the very first, I guess, connection that I made that like did leaps and bounds for my business. It was two kind of at the same time. One was with the planner. She's not a planner anymore, but her business was called Your Day by Meredith. But the way that we got connected was through a venue that was being built like 20 minutes outside of my hometown. It is called the Farmer's Daughter. And as it was being built, they were doing like promo and stuff as the construction was going on. So I reached out and I was like, I'd love to make a video of your venue whenever it's done, free of charge. And I think the key with, I guess how I approached that was I didn't ask for anything in return. I just told them like, hey, I'd love to do this for you, free of charge. Let me know when it's done and when you're available. And to this day, so they've had that video on their website when it first got finished, and now they have an actual wedding film I've done on their website. But to this day, again, that may have been 3 or 4 years ago, they still use my videos on the website. And then after that connection, I was their only preferred videographer on their list. And when the venue opened, it was a barn, or is a barn in North Carolina in the country. Obviously, that has their like, they know who their audience was, and their audience like flooded to that venue. They were booming when they first opened. And I was like the videographer that was getting funneled so many couples from that venue. And again, I didn't ask to be on a preferred list. Honestly, at that time, I probably didn't even know what preferred vendor lists were. I just wanted to make a connection with this venue because I thought it was going to be really nice when it was done. And it was beautiful. But that, I think actually, I had like a list of it somewhere. I can't find it anymore. But in 2022, I want to say 40% of the weddings I did that year were at that venue. Again, because they were just funneling me couples only because of that one act of service that I offered to them with like the explicit, I mean, it was obvious that I didn't ask for anything in return from them. I was just like, hey, I'd love to do this for you, free of charge, let me know. And that, I mean, without them, I owe them and I owe Miss Meredith, that planner, so much for where I'm at now. They'll probably never take credit for it, which is fine. But I owe so much of like the start of my business to them. Actually, Miss Meredith, she opened up a venue and it was called the Mac Haven. So me and my wife, we actually used her planning service and her venue for our wedding day because she basically changed my life because of how many couples she was funneling to me. And then also the Farmer's Daughter. Whenever me and the Farmer's Daughter, the venue kind of got, really like locked in, I guess you could say, I started offering discounts to any couple who booked their Farmer's Daughter for like probably up until like the middle of last year. But now, unfortunately, I don't really do any weddings there. But for a very long time, when I learned that I was their only preferred videographer again, I met that with another act of service to them and their couples. Like, hey, if your couples book me at your venue, obviously you have access to all my videos if you want any videos for your website, and your couples will get me at a discounted rate. So for me, it was always, how can I serve somebody? And that was the first instance where I served somebody, and it just did leaps and bounds for my business.
That's incredible. And I think that we can all resonate and, just hear your heart of, you're not serving because you need something. Of course, we all need things, but you are truly, you can tell your value system just by hearing the way the words you're using, that you're like, you care about the people and that you want to serve them because you want to be a person with a servant's heart. And what I've found in my business as I continue to do this, I've done it for a long time and I'm still doing these things. And basically, it's almost like a video game where you level up and then you do the same thing and then you level up again and you just keep doing that. And you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm here. So you're taking this attitude and as I'm even doing weddings this year and I'm doing them with, crazy budgets, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm reaching out to the venue. I'm reaching out to the planner. I'm reaching out to the couple. It's like, what else can I do to serve you? How can I, and as you continue to do that, people see more value. And you said, I don't do too many weddings at this venue anymore. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, you have taken those steps, and then now you're able to look even back and add value to people that, like other filmmakers or other people that aren't on your level yet. And it doesn't mean that as a human we're not on the same level, but just where we're at in our business, where we're at with our, and what I would assume would happen. I would love for you to kind of talk about when you're doing this many weddings and your heart is a heart of service and servanthood, you start to attract even more people. And when you're doing this amount of weddings, I'm sure you're working with a lot of different photographers, a lot of different florists, and you're building a network of people. And there's something about, you say getting in the room with people, that's harder to do when you're first getting going. But you start having 39 weddings in a year, you're in the room at 39 events, and you have, you're on display for them. They see what it's like to work with you, and that's the best referral. So tell me a little bit about how relationships started budding once you started getting in with some of these weddings and shooting these 50 or 60 weddings. Did anybody, did you do anything for people you were working with? Were you paying attention to the vendors, the photographers, the venues, different things like that? What was the attitude, and what kind of came from those weddings?
I guess the attitude that I always approached every wedding with, especially when I started out, was that two things that I still approach weddings with. Number one is that everybody has a very important job, and that if I do mine the exact way I'm supposed to, then everybody else's will be easier, because we're a team. I'm not competing with anybody. This is like the photographer versus videographer thing. It's the worst when I see like in the wedding videographers Facebook group, people just complaining about photographers or whatever else. And it's like, I understand there's bad of everybody out there. Some people are not going to be the easiest to work with, but I've always just approached it with like, how can I do my job to number one, please the client who's paid me to be there, obviously. And then number two, to make sure everybody else's job is done perfectly seamlessly without me getting in the way or impeding on any of that. And then number two, I've always, and I still do, approach weddings with the mindset that I can learn something from any vendor here. And I think this is another thing that I think a lot of people like starting out might think they're above already is learning. I don't think at any point in my career now or any point someday will I think that I guess know it all. I think there's, especially with something like this that is considered an art form, I don't think there's like a way to do it, like this is the best way it can possibly be done. There's some videographers who do stuff completely different than the way I do, and their clientele loves it, and they book out every year, which is perfect and great. But by no means if I book out one year and we do it totally different, that I'm quote unquote better than this videographer is. That's where styles come into play, but of course we'll get into that at a different time. But I guess my approach was always be ready to learn and always be ready to work as a team. There's actually a planner I worked with in 2020, either 2021 or 2022. Her name is Stephanie. She only does like 8 to 10 weddings a year, but I worked with her once, again, either 2021 or 2022 at a venue in Raleigh, and I hadn't worked with her since then until just recently. She connected with me again, sent me an email for a date, and I was like, oh, I haven't heard from Stephanie in a while. This would be cool. So I was like, where's it at, et cetera, et cetera. And that was actually the one that we just did in Italy. So it was my first international wedding. And but just the connection that me and Stephanie made years ago, where I approached the wedding with number one, how can I again do my job to where Stephanie's job is a lot easier, and then number two, what can I learn from everybody here? And I will say that one thing I did learn from Stephanie at that wedding was professionalism, how to show up on a wedding day and carry yourself on a wedding day. I haven't even told her that, and she'll probably be like, no, you didn't learn that from me, but it's fine. But again, just that little connection of, I mean, this is me and Stephanie were in the room with each other one day, and we hadn't seen each other in 2 years. And then fast forward 2 years later, we're together in Italy doing a wedding at this massive villa. It was absolutely beautiful. And then we come back from that wedding and we do my first celebrity wedding together as soon as we come back from Italy. And then we do another wedding together. This was just this past Saturday. So just a little connection of 2 years ago. Again, just approaching it to, Stephanie, like I know Stephanie's or any planner's goal is to, number one, make the couple's day as easy as possible and as great as possible, but then also make everything else run seamlessly from every other vendor. So when I understood that, all these people are trying to help everybody work, the way they're supposed to, I guess, seamlessly, then I approach weddings now with how can I make everybody else's day run seamlessly too. Like for the planner, instead of always having to ask the planner or the photographer what's next on the timeline, I educate myself on the timeline before the wedding day. Before having to ask the planner, like, where's things going to be set up, I educate myself on the layout. So when I show up to the wedding day, the planner doesn't have to ask or worry about, does Drew know about everything that's going on, even though I sent him 2 emails about everything that's going on. Stuff like that I think it's like the small details that I think a lot of people are skipping out on when they first get started into weddings.
Before we get into the rest of this episode, I want to remind you of howtofilmweddings.com/mentorship. That's right. If you want a one-on-one Zoom call with myself or Nick, head on over to howtofilmweddings.com/mentorship and you can snag a time. We've got a few more spots open for this month. And if you're wanting to just take your business to the next level, if you're wanting us to watch through your films or wanting us to look through your website or just have questions that you need answered right now, a mentorship call might be perfect for you. We have an hour of time. You can ask us anything. We record the call so you can have it afterwards. And we have seen people take mentorship calls and then be able to immediately change things in their business. So if you're interested in a mentorship call, head over to howtofilmweddings.com/mentorship. Now let's get back into the episode. Yeah, and I love the slow and steady diligence over time and just seeing what happens and seeing what coincidences happen and see, karma, whatever you want to call it. But you work with Stephanie a couple of years ago, you leave an impression and then when the moment strikes 2 years later for you to do another wedding and she say, oh yeah, like you left an impression, you had to be in the room with her, which meant you had to have done a wedding with her and you wouldn't have done that if you wouldn't have asked the venue if you could do a tour and wouldn't have built your brand or whatever. And all these things stack up and you have to have a humble heart and stay humble. And people want to work with you when you're humble. If you come walking into a wedding and have your demands of, hey, where am I going to put my stuff? Where's my vendor meal? Do we have like all these things that's going to leave an impression. Or if you take up too much space and the planner doesn't like that, or, you're not self-aware and you get in the photographer's way or whatever that is, but you do all these things and you never know which planner when working with them on a wedding day or which photographer or what's going to happen or what doors are going to open. But if you don't take those initial steps, you don't get to those doors. And, I've seen recently you've gotten selected for some, kind of who's who lists coming up and coming wedding filmmakers. And I saw who you were and was like, oh my gosh, like he's got all this stuff, like all these films that are great. He's going to Italy, he's doing celebrities, he's doing and it's obvious to me. It's like, yeah, this guy has his stuff figured out, but there's all these years of work that go into it. And so if you're out there listening and you're like, man, where's mine? How am I? Like, if you keep a humble heart, a servant's heart, and treat every wedding as a place where you can learn, where you can connect with more people. Not every single wedding is going to be the one wedding that gets you all these bookings, but now, in your next level up, Drew, where you're at, it's like, okay, now I've got international wedding. Not only that, Italy, which is a super hot location, where people are just like, whoa. And now you can, get photos of yourself while you're in Italy and get branding videos and just really level up and update your website with that stuff. And, People that follow Stephanie might be like, oh, that Drew guy, like I'm a planner too. And he just did that wedding with Stephanie. And the doors keep opening and you keep walking through them. And so, I think that that's just really important for us to understand. As far as where your business is at now, like, you said you just got through in Italy, you're doing different celebrity weddings, you're doing some things like that. What does 2024 look like for you? As in, how many were you booking this year? And do you have any, like, you tell us a little bit about like getting on some of these lists and just where your business has gotten to this year?
Yeah. So this year, this is not a 39 or 44 wedding year, praise God. This year will end with 27, I believe, and then next year we're capping it at 19, which we're only accepting four more. Well, I guess after yesterday, three more weddings for next year, and then we're done. I guess you know how that is. We're done until another great opportunity shows up, and then we'll take that one. But we're only accepting. We're gonna try to cap it at 19 next year. And then, at the beginning of last year, I still had three, base packages. The lowest package was, 2,500, I believe. Then my highest one was, I think 4,500 maybe at the beginning of last year, at January last year. Now our average wedding booking is just over, I would say like $7,300 is our average booking now. And like, dude, if you would have told me that would have been possible last January, I would have thought you were like, I would have found it hilarious. I'd have been like, that was funny, but no, that's not going to happen. But I mean, I don't know. I it's just taking like the right steps. Like I rebranded, I joined WIPA. I got into the room with a lot of people that I've been really, really trying to get in the room with. It's like those events. I mean, WIPA, Engage. I haven't been to Engage yet. I really want to go to one. But there's so many networking events and opportunities to get into the room with people that, like obviously those two are not free things. They're all like investments, but I mean, they're investments that at one point will be priceless. Now I'm on the board for my local WIPA chapter, which has been awesome. And then, as far as the lists go, so when the Knot first reached out about the Knot Wants to Watch thing, I actually missed their email like 3 times because I thought it was just kind of like a marketing email and they were going to try to get me to sign up for something. And I was like, I'm not really interested in using any of those, any platform currently. But then I got another email from the Knot and it was just like, hey, Drew, we want to see if you saw our last email. And that was it. And I was like, oh, it's a short email for like a marketing thing. Let me take a look at it. And then I finally realized that it emailed me months ago that I had been selected for that. So that was really, really cool. It was actually like, I don't even really know how to explain the way I felt when I first did it because a little background, my parents are like heavily involved in my business. Like they don't work for me or anything, but every piece of news information, almost every time I even book a really cool wedding, they're the first people to know about it all the time. So when I told them, I had gotten chosen to be in the Knots magazine, my mom had brought up to me, something that she remembered us talking about in the car ride. It was just me and my mom. And I told her that one of my goals for 2025 or 2026 was to just get in one magazine. I just want to be in a magazine. And then, I saw the email and I believe it this past February and I told her that I just got picked for one and she had got all emotional and she was like, Drew, you were just saying that this is a goal for like the next 3 years. But that was unbelievable. And I cannot thank the Knot and specifically Hannah Nowak from the Knot. I cannot thank her enough for, number one, everything that went into that. I didn't expect for it to be so like there was a lot of work put into that, which was really, really cool. And just for me to be somebody who was chosen to be, in that list and I just got picked and I was able just to sit back and let the list come out. Seeing all the hard work that went into that, for us was really, really cool. And I was very appreciative. And then, when it came out, I mean, I think we have like 30 magazines at my house. My parents got so many magazines. All my family has magazines. It was really, really cool. Because, we were a family of five. I was the youngest one. I've been like baby boy Drew in my family forever, and I probably will be forever. So when this big news came out, my family was, I mean, over the moon about it, and as was I. And then when the Loverly List came out, we were actually we had a triple header this past May. It was supposed to just be Friday and Sunday, but then we had to reschedule, and then we had that Saturday got booked up as well. But the wedding Friday was in Charleston, or Kiowa Island to be exact, just south of Charleston. And then Saturday was supposed to be in Raleigh, and that's like 5 hours apart. So I was like, we got to make this work somehow. And again, my parents came through and were like, we'll drive you so you can sleep in the car for these few weddings, because my wife was a teacher at that point still, and she couldn't come to that Friday wedding. But on the way down to Kiowa Island, Loverly contacted me and let me know that I was named one of the top videographers in the country for their Loverly List. So that was another cool instance where all three of us, me and my parents, found out at the same time that we get picked for another list, which, I mean, it's been the biggest blessing. I cannot sit here and say that it was all me. I know that it was the people around me. Countless hours of hard work and prayer went into it, but by no means do I think that is just, like that's the ceiling. I got in the magazine. Okay, I'm done. I can retire in, 2 years. No. There's a lot more work to be done, but by no means do I take that for granted either. Getting selected for those lists was really, really, really cool for me.
Yeah, and I think it's fun to hear this story, and I remember seeing the Loverly List, and I think that might have been where I found you, or where I had been seeing your work and was like, oh man, he's really killing it, and I'm just watching this progression, and you see it in my role doing this podcast now since 2018, just watching people come in, and it's just like it feels like they rocket up to different markets and higher end paying better, all the things that you want it to be. It's people that have goals that are clear, that they want to hit. They have skill, like you went to school, you know what you're doing. And then you realize that the skill is important, but the relationship building and the service is equally important, if not more important, in building the brand. And then good things just happen. And once the good things happen, it's different in everyone's story. You take advantage of those things, and then it helps you to level up to not only that, but the next thing. And to be 7,300 average, shooting 19 weddings next year, I bet you'll hit like 25 because you'll get so many good opportunities, but we'll see. Like watching all that, there's a lot of things that have to line up. Your videos have to be awesome. You have to know what you're doing. You have to have the relationships. You have to be willing to put in the work. And not one person that I've talked to that has done what you're doing hasn't had a few years of behind the scenes that is just putting in so many reps, so much hard work to get to that point. And if you're out there and you're like, man, I've been doing this for 10 years or 2 years or 5, whatever, everybody's story is different. But what I do know is that good things happen when you start taking those, like when you become an action taker. You mentioned one thing, and we're almost out of time here, but we talked a little bit about style, and I love the style of your films and like your, just even the rebrand that you've done, your headshots, everything. Like it says a lot about the kind of person, the kind of brand that you are. What role has like taste, style, like that sort of, like what has that played in like knowing your style, and like what has that role? What I'm asking is you know your style, you know who you are, who you want to aim for. What has that done for you being confident in making decisions for you and your brand, and what doors has that opened up for you?
So this is one of my favorite things to talk about is style. I guess me kind of like really diving into what my style was is one of the only things that I'll owe to film school, I guess I should say. Because again, I think the reason why I didn't like film school is because this is no knock at it. I mean, I would go back through it all now, knowing what I know now, but at that point, I knew again at that as soon as right before going into my senior semester, I knew that I wanted to tackle weddings, and my senior semester was like, script writing and narrative film, which is none of what a wedding is. I don't write a script for anybody on a wedding film on a wedding day. Um, I don't have like a certain like mark scheme, and like I don't have to like reshoot so many scenes like a narrative film like I do on a wedding day. So I was like over it, but a lot of what film school taught me was through my classes that focused on documentary was I guess the beauty of documentary, which is basically um well, before I kind of go into that, I think documentary is a word that's thrown around a lot in the industry, almost too much, but I guess I shamelessly do it too. For me, what really helped me with kind of like really molding my style to what it is now was that love for, showing up to a bridal suite and all the girls are hanging out and I don't have to ask anything of anybody. I get my light right. If I need to cut off some lights, cut on some lights, anything like that. And then I just let the girls continue to be the girls, because I always tell my couples on their calls too, you're not booking me for a wedding video that's going to scream, Drew Coleman Films. Like, I want your wedding video to scream who you are and who your partner is. I don't want you to watch, the getting ready portion of your wedding film. And it's just only stuff that I set up or posed or faked the entire day. Like clients, I don't think my clients or any clients really, but just not other people's business is not my business. But I don't think anybody personally deserves a wedding video that's 11 minutes of just poses that I set up on their wedding day. I don't want any of my couples, 10 years from now to go back and watch their video and want to relive their day. And all they're doing is reliving things I set up over and over and over again. I love I kind of give this situation to a lot of my clients on their calls. Like say the photographer's taking a group shot of the bridesmaids. What me and my wife are looking for whenever we're filming is those in between moments. As soon as she's done with that shot, she may look down, take a look at her camera. That's when the bride may turn to somebody and say something, or somebody may crack a joke and they all laugh. That's the moments that we're really looking for. It's like the small stuff that they'll forget about an hour after it happened. If I can always do my job to where that's the moments that I'm looking for, then I'm satisfied. And again, film school and my love for documentary is kind of what molded my style into being that, of just looking for the small in between moments in everything. Like when the bride's coming down the aisle, obviously every videographer needs to get the groom's reaction and the bride with her father, whoever may be walking her down the aisle. But a small in between moment may be, what is the bride's mom doing at this point? How can we get a shot of that? What is, if the bride has like a brother and the bridal and is one of the groomsmen, how can we get a shot of him at this time? It's the small in between stuff that the couples may not notice. And if they do notice, they'll forget about it the instance after it happened. And that's what I find a lot of beauty in when it comes to a wedding day, because it's genuinely something we had zero control over. And that's, again, for my wedding film, the videographer was incredible. And there's so many moments in that video that, number one, I had no idea she was filming. And number two, it's stuff that we genuinely had no control over, but it's just some of the best shots in the video, which is why we booked her, because she is somebody who I also, felt really understood the documentary style of film. And then there's some people, there's opinions everywhere. Some people may watch my work and not think it's documentary, which is totally fine. But the way I approach it, our way mentally, is how can we just be a documentary filmmaker where we just show up, hit record, and always let our couples be themselves, let their guests be themselves, their families be themselves, instead of us, making their wedding day into a Hollywood movie. That's not our goal anytime we show up to film a wedding.
Yeah. And I think that's just, in a world where there's just so many different weddings, like maybe it is your world where you're like, no, I want it to be a production. There is a couple out there for you that's like that wants that. They're like, make me into an Instagram star. Cool. Like, but knowing that style is so important, and not, heading over to Drew's website and being like, whoa, I love his videos, now I'm going to make that. It's like, I think a lot of people just kind of ping pong. And I did that for the longest time, back and forth between what they like, what they see, and try to copy people's stuff. And what really makes you stand out is whenever you understand your own style and you have your own taste. And yeah, it's great to watch other wedding filmmakers and what they're doing, but be inspired from other things, and like bring your values into your films. Bring what you wanted, like what you would want if you were getting a wedding film again, or what you had for your wedding film that, and so that to me, when you add the things up that we've talked about, the planner Stephanie that you went to Italy with or whatever, it's like, she knows your style now. She knows the kinds of films. And whenever a client comes to her that wants something like that, she can say, oh, you got to check out my friend Drew, as opposed to you being vanilla. And it's just like, I don't even know. I mean, his prices are good. Book Drew because his prices are good. You're never going to demand higher prices if there isn't some kind of a style attached. There's not some kind of a brand attached that people can see the value in what you bring more than everybody else in your market. And if you ever want to take that next level, keep leveling up to that next thing, you have to know your style, and you have to have made those choices to, get in the same room with people, and you've had to pay your dues, and you can keep walking it back all the way to having this idea for, I want to do wedding films. And it's like, you can actually really skyrocket quickly in this business if you get those things in order. And so, man, there's so much more we could dig into. We're running out of time. I would love for people to be able to connect with you. Where's the best place for them to kind of connect with you? We've got a lot of wedding filmmakers that tune in. If they have more questions, they want to get in touch with you, what's the best place to say hey to you?
Instagram, at Drew Coleman Films on Instagram. I love, as you can tell, I love talking. I love talking to people. I love people. I'd be happy to connect with any and all types of people all the time. So at Drew Coleman Films on Instagram.
I love that. And we'll link that in the show notes. Any other things you want to make sure that we hit before we head out today? I don't want to leave you hanging, but we are running out of time. So if anything you want to make sure that we hit before we head out?
Yeah, well, I guess kind of just bounce off what you just said. There's so many weddings and so many wedding videographers with so many styles. So by no means do I want to come across as like, my style was so good that I jumped up this fast in the industry. You should do the same thing. No, by any means. And again, the reason why I disliked film school was because I thought film school was teaching me like a right and wrong way to make films. And I really do appreciate the art of this medium. So I don't think there is a right or wrong way to do art. I think art is art. Like one of my best friends in this industry, his wedding films are so different than mine. But I think he is one of the most talented wedding videographers I've met since I've started this up. And just because his style is different than mine, and I would never do a wedding the way he does it, by no means am I quote unquote better, or is he quote unquote better than me. Like you said, there's so many weddings, so many clients, so many vendors. There's always a client out there for somebody doing the style of work they're doing. I guess even with this like list thing, again, I love the fact that I've been on these lists, and I think it's so cool and it's such a blessing. But by no means does that mean I'm a quote unquote better videographer than somebody who may just do a lot of work differently than the way I do. And then, without going into it, I guess, like, because I know this is like a big topic in the wedding videographer industry. I absolutely love content creators. I think it's really, really cool. But without like an entire TED talk on content creators.
Yeah. And I think it was 2 weeks ago, I interviewed a content creator, and we've had a couple of conversations in the our Facebook group, about content creators and different things. And I think that what you're saying is so true, just about art is art. And people, what I have found, and I don't want to get too much hate in the comments, is the people that come across in these groups or other platforms or whatever that are like hating on other people or saying this is the right way, this is the wrong way. Those are the people that are typically insecure and don't have like enough confidence in what they're doing. And so if somebody's doing something and winning and they feel good about it and they're doing it morally correct, it's like, I'm all for it. And yeah, I think that in that whole conversation with content creators, or, it's like your films, similar vein to the kinds of films I want to make. But like, I think about my friends like Bottle Brush Films. Dude, their films are ridiculously good, and I would never make a film like that. Nothing wrong with it. It's so cool. And so just knowing that style, knowing that lane, and applying these steps we've talked about today, if you're listening to this, you just start. Don't wait to do your 50 push-ups until you know everything about push-ups. Just get in there, and if you got to do push-ups on your knees for a while, that's fine. You'll be able to do them regular in a few months. You'll be able to do them with some plates on your back a couple months later. Whatever it is, but progression over perfection always. And so, Drew, thanks so much, man. It was so good to get to meet you and spend some time with you. This is a great episode. I'm so thankful you took the time to be a part, and I know our audience is as well. So thanks so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me, dude. Again, I'm absolutely honored to be on this podcast. So I really appreciate you asking me to come on, and I had a great time. I can't wait for this one to come out. All my family can watch it together too. That'd be great. Thank you for having me on, man. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much, Drew, for taking the time to be on the podcast today. What an incredible episode, and I'm so excited to see where you head in your business and what happens for you with your business moving forward. So thanks so much for taking the time to be on today. And before we head out today, I just want to remind you again of our sponsors for this episode, especially Wedditor. They've been editing my wedding films since 2019, and you can find them at howtofilmweddings.com/outsourcing. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this was helpful to you for this week. And until next time, we'll see you.